Hey guys, welcome back to APS Amplifier. Today, I'm going to be introducing you guys to 5 different synchro strategies that you can build and play in Yu-Gi-Oh! I had a lot of fun making this list because there's just so many different types of synchro decks that you can play. And I also personally consider synchro to be kind of the point in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where things got a lot faster, more high octane, and more fun. So limiting this to just 5 decks was pretty tough. I do have some honorable mentions at the end as well. And yeah, I think this will all be really fun. Before we jump into it, of course, make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to APS Amplifier for more of these informative Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck recommendation videos. I've got plenty more where this came from. So we're gonna start with a deck that I consider to be sort of the gold standard of easy, accessible synchro summoning in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is with Sword Soul. Basically, they synchro summon by generating a token onto the field that becomes your non-tuner. This is really great because it really eases the process and simplifies it. So, for example, take Sword Soul of Moye. By just revealing a Worm monster or Sword Soul card in your hand, you get to special summon a level 4 token. And since Moye is a tuner and you've got the non-tuner on the field, you can immediately synchro summon into any level 8 that you want. You might summon Sword Soul Chi Zhao, and when it's summoned, it lets you add another Sword Soul card from your deck to your hand. Sword Soul of Tai. It's kind of similar. You summon a token by banishing a card from your graveyard. And then there's Sword Soul Long Yuan, which you special summon from your hand by discarding another worm monster. And then when it's summoned, it makes the token alongside itself. It's level 6 too, so it actually lets you ladder into slightly higher level synchro monsters. I already talked about Sword Soul Chi Zhao. You know, it gets a search on summon, but it also has a monster effect negation, which is pretty handy. And there's level 10 monsters like Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Qingying, very long name, I know, but it gets super high attack points, it's difficult to get it off the field, and it can get rid of some of your opponent's cards whenever any card happens to get banished. So it's really good alongside Sword Soul Long Yuan. And this guy actually burns your opponent whenever they try to use monster effects or spells and traps, and it banishes the card in the process, so it's just a really good repertoire of synchro monsters. And this deck can use Baronne de Fleur, which is kind of the go-to super powerful level 10 synchro. One last thing about this deck too is that because it's all worm monsters, they combine really conveniently well with the Tenyi archetype. So it adds a bit of a link component and some protection and card removal and just extra material. So deck number 2 is Punk, a deck that I almost despise playing against because it's so effective. But the Punk monsters basically are these psychic type monsters that special summon themselves and make synchros. It's not super complicated, but basically all of the small Punk monsters can pay 600 life points to usually add a card from your deck to your hand, or conduct a fast synchro or fusion summon in your opponent's turn. This is really good for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're good at sort of baiting your opponent's negations like Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, and Ash Blossom without a huge commitment, and they can all be summoned with cards like Emergency Teleport. Then you've got larger Punk monsters like Foxy Tune that effectively just allow you to summon smaller or larger ones from your deck and even sometimes graveyard. They've got a lot of different effects, so I'll just put a few of them on the screen, and basically you just synchro summon from there. They've got a few different synchro monsters and even a fusion monster that they can go into. The highlights being Punk Dragon Drive and most especially Amazing Dragon. This one's really good because it actually bounces your opponent's cards back to the hand whenever it gets summoned, and then later on you can use these effects to summon more Punk monsters. They've even got a field spell that lets you extend your plays further and gives you up to 2 free draws per turn. And a bit of a hidden benefit to using this deck too is that you can make use of cards like Psychic and Punisher, which actually benefits from your life points being lower than your opponent's. Or maybe you want to combine it with something like Gold Pride, where your life points also need to be lower than your opponent's to activate a lot of their best effects. Alright, deck number 3 gets into anime territory with Red Dragon Archfiend. You guys probably know this guy because he recently got a structure deck that's all about him, the Crimson King structure deck. It's one of my personal favorite decks, and it's really easy to play actually. So basically you're going to be using the different Resonator tuner monsters, some of the better new ones being Soul Resonator and Vision Resonator that get you searches, either when they're summoned or when they go to the graveyard, and they're really easy to bring out. Plus, Fiend monsters like Wandering King Wildwind and Bone Archfiend that can just special summon themselves out whenever you've got the tuners on the field. You're going to be making synchro monsters like Red Rising Dragon to continue your combos, and that's where the bigger Red Dragon monsters come up. There's the new Scar Red Dragon Archfiend. So basically, you make it, and whenever you synchro summon with it, it'll summon Red Dragon Archfiend from your extra deck and even nuke your opponent's board in the process, which is really cool. And the biggest forms like Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss actually provide you with negations. There's even the Hot Red Dragon King Calamity. It's kind of used in a lot of maybe less than reputable FTK strategies in the meta right now, but it's still really cool because it's on theme, and you can make things like Red Supernova Dragon as well. And thanks to the structure deck, Red Dragon also has spell and trap support for a change. So there's Crimson Gaia, which is just this continuous spell that gets you cards every turn and forces your opponent's monsters into defense position for you to use with Red Dragon Archfiend's effect. And then you've got things like Red Zone that give you a targeted pop in your opponent's turn and can even bring back banished Red Dragon monsters. Red Dragon basically functions as just a really big get out strong monster, get rid of everything else in the field, and swing for game. But because of Red Zone and Ademancipator and those sorts of cards, you can play this as a bit of a tango control mid-range strategy if you want. Alright, next deck is Stardust Dragon, because obviously if I'm going to mention Red Dragon, I can't leave out Yusei's ace monster. So this is pretty much Synchro Summon incarnate, because there are so many different ways to play this deck, and it's almost difficult sort of finding a good place to start. So I'll just talk about the Stardust engine itself. That's basically your Stardust Synchron and Stardust Trail. Stardust Synchron can summon itself from the hand or the graveyard by distributing any monster, and when it's special summoned, you'll be able to search for a spell or trap from your deck that mentions Stardust Dragon. So usually that's going to be Arrive in Light. It's this continuous spell that, when you activate it, lets you put a level 1 dragon monster on top of your deck. Normally that's going to be Converging Will's Dragon, and then whenever you conduct a Synchro Summon, you get to draw a card, and the card that you draw will conveniently be Converging Will's Dragon. When it's drawn, it can special summon itself to the field and another level 1 dragon. That particular combo basically lets you make Shooting Majestic Star Dragon, which can negate cards and banish them and then comes back, and it's very, very strong. But there are also entirely different ways of playing Stardust, like using the Junk and Synchron cards. So you guys know there are a bazillion different Synchron tuner monsters: Junk Synchron, Jet Synchron, the recently released Revolution Synchron, and you also have access to cards like Junk Speeder, which is a synchro that just summons all of your different Synchron monsters from the deck. There's loads of different tuner synchros. You can make all these different level 12 monsters like Cosmic Blazar Dragon, Shooting Quasar Dragon. Stardust Dragon just gets a little bit crazy and overwhelming. It's an extremely high combo deck that can just make use of so many different engines and just different sort of external support cards. I think of Synchro Overtake, for instance, and Synchro Rumble. Plus there's the new Crimson Dragon support that came from Duelist Nexus. There's a lot you can do with this deck, so my honest advice would be to just sort of study up, mess around, find a build that works for you. And the final deck's going to be a bit of an oldie but a goodie in Ademancipators. So this deck actually had a bit of a romp at the top tiers of Yu-Gi-Oh!, but after getting a few adjustments on the ban list, it pretty much fell off. However, it's a really good synchro strategy. So basically you've got Ademancipator Researcher, Analyzer, and Seeker, and these are all tuner monsters that can easily summon from your hand, and the way that this deck works is really unique. So they'll excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and your goal is to try to hit non-tuner rock monsters. If you hit one, you'll get to summon it to the field. What's really cool about it is that the combos are sort of freeform because it really all depends on what rock monsters you see. The deck has some built-in rock monsters that you'd like to hit, like Dragite, Leonite, and Rapti, but you can actually use a lot of external rocks as well, like the Kwakimeru monsters that can get negations and advantage. There's cards like Rock Band Xeno Guitar and Doki Doki that summon more rocks from your deck. Ademancipator Raptite's probably the best synchro monster in theme. It can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck and bounce opponent's cards based on the amount of rock monsters that you hit, and it negates a spell and trap each turn. But this deck doesn't actually lock itself into rock monsters, so you can make all kinds of strong synchros, NXZs, and link monsters. I'd say the worst thing about this deck is that it is a little bit based on chance, like what you hit determines how you can play, but if you kind of want something that's a little bit like fun and exciting and lives life on the edge and still is very high combo, this is definitely the deck for you. Okay, a couple of honorable mentions. Gotta talk about Manatium. It's all about tuners that actually want to be destroyed by card effects so that they can summon extra copies of themselves from the deck. It uses things like Manatium Ruum Heart, it's got a field spell, Peaceful Planet Calarium, which searches all of its monsters, and its big synchro monster, Manatium Prime Heart, can get untargetable, attack multiple times, and has a good floating effect. There's also the Goatee archetype, which is actually properly pronounced fish, but we're just gonna call it Goatee here. You'll want to banish your different tuner monsters, and when they've been banished, they'll come back on the next turn. They can actually synchro summon during your opponent's turn. And so you're going to be making a line of Synchro Monsters that kind of level up from like 6 to 8 to 10, and the strongest monster, Goatee of the Deep Beyond, just straight up banishes all the cards on the field when it gets summoned. And final honorable mention goes to Blackwings, because I did talk about Stardust and Red Dragon in this video. This is a deck that's gotten a load of support over the years, and so many different tuners and non-tuners and ways to summon them. I don't actually have a lot of personal experience playing the deck, but I do know that some of its new really powerful boss monsters are Blackwing Full Armor Master, which basically just is kind of a towers type card, can't be affected by anything, and Blackwing Assault Dragon, which actually burns your opponent out every time that they use different effects. All right, and so those are your different Yu-Gi-Oh! Synchro decks that you might want to try out. There's so many different ones, so of course I probably missed something. Make sure that you let me know down in the comments and just tell me what your favorite synchro strategy is. And if you like this video, then I've got other ones like 5 fusion strategies that you can play or 5 XZ strategies that you can play. You can click to watch those right here.